it's Shannon, aka Crossing, and welcome back to my channel. We are currently standing in a little winery that I created a couple of days ago on stream, and I was talking about how I thought it would be fun to really extend this area and have two villager houses on each side. I thought it was really fun to play with this in-game pathing and try a little something different for another villager area. If you remember, our last speed build was a sunken villager neighborhood, and now we're going to work on where my pinpoint is and try something a little bit more flat for this section of my map. So I'm going to start by just continuing this dirt pathing to get an idea for the space and how far I want this pathing to go, how big I want this area to be, and then I'm going to try to start measuring out where each of the houses are going to go. So I did think about which villager I would want on each side, and I looked through my villager list for a bit and house exteriors, and I decided that Bee and Ozzy, their houses would look really nice together, and they also just fit the sort of color palette of this area. Feels like they could have some really like farmy countryside houses, so they're just kind of perfect for what I was going for, the vibe that I was looking for this area. So I am going to use both of them and their houses for this area, and I think that they will hopefully enjoy their new houses. So if you remember how I do a lot of speed builds, I always measure out where I want the houses to go if I have an idea in mind. So I started just calculating. I guess calculating is kind of a fancy word for measuring like two spaces away from the path on each side to see how far I want the houses to be. And of course they're going to be completely symmetrical on each side, so I need to make sure that I measure correctly. So at first I started by doing 4 spaces back and then 3 spaces to the right, but I decided I needed to move everything over 1 space once I looked kind of from farther away with my camera. So I'm just fixing that up now, and then we're going to place the houses. Once we place the houses, we'll get into a little bit more decorating, and then I'll talk some more about that. So now that I have Bee and Ozzy placed, I wanted to just start to add a little bit to this dirt pathing to give it a little bit more texture. I think that the in-game dirt pathing is really nice, but it can definitely use some custom codes on top. So I found this distressed brick pathing that just looks so good on top of the regular in-game dirt path because it really blends in so well. It gives it just the right amount of contrast. So I'm just playing around with how big I want the patches to be and how distressed I want it to feel. So I'll kind of go around throughout the speed build and fill in any empty areas, and then I want to, as I go, just fill in any items that can really make the area look more lived in. So I knew I wanted to use a destination signpost, a mountain bike, the manhole cover, and then I'll go around. I think with this speed build I really go back and forth between like putting paths down, decorating, placing trees. I just had a little bit more of a wild process with this one for some reason, so I apologize for the running back and forth, but sometimes that's just how our processes go and you just gotta go with it. So I also wanted to add a garden bench on each side of this path because I think it will give it a little bit of dimension or just make it a little bit more interesting for this straight path that's on or like in the middle of both of the houses. So I think the more that I can add trees around to fill up the space but also know what I'm working around and what I'm decorating around, I do like to do that. So I will say that usually I place trees first, but like I said, I was kind of going back and forth with this process, but if you see me placing trees around, it's because I am really just trying to get an idea for the overall composition, where I want the trees to be, and then having something to work around. It also, for a countryside aesthetic, I think that it is really important for me to have the area feel really wooded and filled rather than completely empty, at least for the look that I'm going for. So once we get into decorating some of the villager houses, I added this little wooden path with these little planks in front of Bee's house, and I like how it looks, makes it feel like she's really like off of the path. And then I go through and start adding some little elements. I'm really working with a lot of yellows and whites and greens, a little bit of oranges here. So I got this new path by Colin.crossing, which I will link, and the leaves are just so nice. They work really well. So I'm going to try to add it into both of the yards for my villagers, and then I'm playing around more with just what I want to decorate the front of each of their yards with. So I grabbed a lot of items that felt just really kind of like, I don't even know the right word for it, just words that you not words, items that you would have in your front yard. So like a hose reel or a rocking chair, any items that I thought would just give it a little bit of life, and then I just play around with what ends up working in the actual space. So now you can see that I am adding some more flowers, because I think that the more flowers that we have in this area to fill in any spaces really goes with that whole farmy vibe that we have in front with the winery, and then just a nice filler. You'll also see me just placing weeds, because I do want to get some overgrown weeds going in this area. And for Bee, I ended up doing a little rocking chair with a mug and a leaf stool, as well as some little rain boots. You'll notice I'm using a lot of yellow items over here, because that was the colors that I started grabbing for flowers. So I thought it'd be fun to play off of that with the items that I'm using. So it looks like she's enjoying it already, doing her little workout up here. She's super cute, and I am really glad that she's on my island. So as I continue through here, I'll be playing around with some different items. I'll kind of swap things out if I think of something better, and then I'll be playing with different paths in front of each of the yards. So I know I'm using that log plank path, and I know I'm going to use that leaf pathing that I like a lot for just some more of the areas off of the path. So now that I have Bee done, I want to work on Ozzy's house, and I guess Bee's house isn't 100% done because I'll be making some finishing touches as I go, but I at least wanted to get the layout going for Ozzy. So placing some trees, placing some flowers, and my fencing back in, so I have an idea of the space that I'm working with. And then I wanted to give him a little bit more of a farmy area if possible. So I wanted to play with like a really natural farm aesthetic where it's a mix of flowers and pumpkins, and then I can play with some more of those items that you would see on an actual farm. So like the hand cart, or maybe a watering can or a shovel. So I'll play around with what I think ends up working. We don't have like a ton of room to work with up here, so I'll play as much as I can and do as much as possible in the area that I have. And then also just thinking about like those areas to the left and right of his house behind, I'll need to make sure that I'm filling them in with like trees and bushes and more items where possible. So thinking about what I can do there, and then just seeing what's actually ending up working in the space. So I am going to let you guys just watch me build for a couple of minutes, and I'll be right back to talk some more. Okay, so now that we have a pretty good structure going on, I'm liking how the houses are turning out. I want to continue just adding detail all throughout because I think that the pathing needs a little bit more life to it, some more items, maybe just a little bit more love. And then as well as this area behind the path, for the photo that I plan on taking, I want to make sure that it feels really wooded in the background. And I also want to add some more flowers and trees behind the houses so that it doesn't look completely empty. So you'll see me just going through and adding finishing touches everywhere. I really play around with a few different items for fillers, especially like scarecrows are a great one, the spooky pumpkins or spooky towers, and mostly just a lot of flowers and trees. And as for the pathing, I added a little garden wagon. I think the beekeepers' hives work really good for fillers. And then the rest is probably going to just be like bushes, trees, custom codes. So I have a couple more finishing touches to do, and then I'll be back to talk about the final build. Here we are in the final area, and I'm really happy with how this turned out. I think that Bee and Ozzy's houses work really great together, and I love that you can see it behind the winery, and I was starting to feel a little bit of a flow for this island, which is always good. So I am just gonna walk around and talk about some of the elements. If you go straight back on the path, nothing crazy, just the benches and then leading to the forest. And then we have Bee's house over here with a lot of yellow elements, which I ended up having a lot of fun playing with. That little mug and the rain boots, just all these little details and custom codes I think turned out really nice. And then we have Ozzy over to the right here, and he has more of a farm focused gardeny vibe. I love the little lawnmower with the tracks over there. And again, very simple, but really loving how this area came out. So I hope that you guys enjoyed this build. I had so much fun working on it. I would love to know what you guys think and what else you would like to see. And I will see you guys next time. Bye.